It sounds so simple to be a listener, but how many of us can admit that we are good and effective listeners? Assalamualaikum. Welcome again to JJ Table Talk series. What do I have to say? For some of us who have been following my series, I have sometimes past talked about listening skills. Listening skills sounds simple, yeah? But it is not so. It is very, very challenging. You see, in the communication process, we have speaking skills, we have listening skills, we have questioning skills, and we have reflecting skills. Do you know that as humans, we can speak 125 to 150 words per minute, while our brain can process more than 600 words per minute. So can you imagine, in any conversation, actually our mind is very underutilized. Why do I say so? Because the process sort of focus more on the speaker and the listener becomes secondary. And also because we as a listener avoid to interrupt the speaker as a sign of respect, or sometimes our mind is not there and we are not really listening, but we pretend to listen. So actually, friends, it sounds so simple to be a listener, but how many of us can admit that we are good and effective listeners? You know, when I reflect back on my experiences growing up, those days, you know, my generation, we listen more because our parents speak more. But as we grew up amongst the siblings, being the elder sister, I realized that I was doing more of the speaking rather than listening, and my younger siblings just kept quiet. Then as I grew up as a mother, again, more talking, less listening. Why? Because we have so many chores to do and time is precious. We just want to get things done. Then when I started working as a supervisor, as a manager, as a leader, once again, being task-driven, being result-oriented, I just tell people to do what they have to do because it's faster that way. But then I realized that to get effective decisions, remember the last time I talked about building rapport and having trust? I find that when it's a one-way conversation, a monologue, sometimes that trust or that relationship is lost. The connection is lost. But when we engage in a dialogue where both speaker and the listener contributes to the communication process, we realize that suddenly there is a connection. You know, there's also a song, well known, I think most of you would know, that stresses listen, listen, and listen many times so that we pause for a while and start giving the opportunity for the person in front of us to respond. Most of the time when we are talking, we just go on and on and on and on, blah, 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 blah. Is that fulfilling? I realized over the years that when I became a facilitator to engage in that rapport, in that connection, I started to pause. I pose a question, I pause, I listen for reaction, then I ask, is there somebody who wants to say something about this? And I realized that when we have this listening pause, allowing the other person to say something when we ask or when we speak, there is a connection. So I like to share with you that actually in listening, we have 3 levels in the listening skills. The first level is what people say very internal. What most of us do here goes here and it comes here. And then when we ask, what did we understand? What did we retain? I don't know. A lot of us say, I heard some words, but it doesn't make sense. Because internal set in, it means that this level 1, you are having internal dialogue. I have that. I admit I fail, because most of the times I will have this internal dialogue within myself when I'm in a conversation. What do I mean by this? Meaning that if you do not have this dialogue within yourself, then something strange about yourself, because we do that a lot, and it's quite normal to have this internal dialogue when it is you talking to yourself most of the time. That's level 1. And we forget what the other person is saying. Then we go to level 2 of listening. Level 2 of listening is called focused listening. And this is where we start to listen a bit more, having appreciation of what the other person is saying, and then we respond. Again, okay, I'm not going to give you a lot of details, just tips. Again, when we talk about focused listening, it is starting to have that engaging connection. The third level of listening is called listen with empathy. Some people call it global listening. And this is where you're listening beyond what the person is saying. You're looking at the nuances, the hidden meaning of those words, the intonation. And sometimes you find that it makes more sense. Because you see, when you listen at level 3, which is listen with empathy, you're listening with the whole lot of you, the whole person, the being. You're looking for understanding, you're listening for attention, and you're listening with the whole person, and you're not making any judgment within yourself. And this is the best form, the best level of listening that you can have in any conversation with another person. And this is so important for us, because when we have this sort of listening, it is something that is being appreciated. It creates a bond. That is something that you as a speaker and the other person who's a listener have an interaction, and that's the beauty of it. Remember, when we listen for understanding, not listen to start to reply. Sometimes I notice in any conversation, before you can even finish that, but say, I want to say this. Hey, hold on. Listen for a while and let me finish what I have to say. And that's why a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding happens. When we have this level 3 of listening, you're aware of what the intention of the other person trying, the message that the person is going to give you, and you are not preempting anything. As a good listener, as an effective listener, when you engage in this sort of a process, a two-way process, you elicit more meaning to that conversation. And this is so important, because a lot of us sometimes forget that listening helps us understand the situation better. I'll give you an example. A lot of people say, when you look at body language, when you sort of fold your arms like that, people say because you are being cold, you are not approachable. But have you sort of considered that it could be because the temperature in the room, the air conditioning is a bit colder, and a person is feeling cold? So sometimes I do not like to generalize all these non-verbal cues, because there is different meaning to something, to what the person is saying. And if you're an effective listener, you understand, like sometimes they say, it's okay, but the look, the facial expression, the intonation does not synchronize with the words coming out from the person. So remember, my friends, it's time that we give listening a place in the conversation. And don't forget that if you want to have a very effective and engaging communication process, speak yes, listen yes. So I'll share with you more tips about listening in the next series. So if you like what you're watching, let's listen more and talk less. Thank you for listening to me. Bye-bye. JJ checking out.